Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, and if you are new, hello, my name is Christina, and today we're going to be covering all of my top 3 products in every category, and this is going to be our drugstore edition. I recently updated my high-end luxury top 3 in every makeup category, so I'll link that down below for you guys if you're curious, but today we're going to be focusing on everything drugstore as well as some Asian beauty. I figured it would be okay to kind of lump this in because I have a lot of Asian beauty that I absolutely love that kind of fall into the category of being in that same price point. I do feel like there's a lot of online retailers that offer these products, so I'll link those down below for you guys as well as everything else, and I'm gonna have everything tagged in the YouTube shopping tab. If you guys have any questions about any products, please leave them in the comments down below, but let's get started. I figured I'd give you guys a little refresher, or if you're new here, just let you guys know that I am oily, acne prone. That's my skin type. I do have a light medium complexion, and I am a pretty true neutral. A lot of these things are going to be catered to that. Everything is going to be based on my personal experiences though. So let's start off with my primers. Actually, for primers, I only have 2. I didn't want to just put things into the video just to hit the 3 products. I wanted to be honest with myself as well as with you guys. So I only have 2 for this one. The first one is going to be the Milani Conceal and Perfect. This is actually something that I hadn't tried until way after it had released, and I'm very happy that I had finally tried it. This is kind of like that putty texture, except it's a lot lighter. It's almost like a solidified gel, and then when you put it on, the silicones, you can feel it, and it smooths over the pores. It blurs the complexion. Since it's not like a thicker cream, it does leave a really thin layer, so you don't have residue and you don't have any pilling. I don't necessarily think that it like stops my oils throughout the day. I do think, however, with other oil fighting products, it does work really well, but by itself, I think it's more of the way that it sits on the skin. And the other face primer I want to talk about is the e.l.f. Power Grip Primer. Now, to give you guys a little disclaimer, I personally have not purchased from e.l.f. since the whole Matte Rife mistake happened a while ago. I can't even remember when it happened, but I just completely stopped purchasing from them. If you guys do purchase from them, this is for you. This is for you to know. And again, I just wanted to be honest with myself and look through my personal collection and find the best of the best that I own. I probably will not be purchasing from them anytime soon, but I did want to include it here for you. So this primer is going to be a dupe for the Milk Hydro Grip, so if you would prefer to purchase from Milk, you totally can. I do think that they work very similarly, except this one I do feel like is slightly more runny, so you can kind of spread it across the face a little bit easier, and it absorbs a little bit faster too. I do think that this works pretty much only with dewy skin products. So if you have a dewy skin tint or dewy foundation or a more greasy concealer, this helps it kind of tack on, because I find if I use it with more mattifying foundations and concealers, it can be a little bit more difficult to blend. But I do think that it does make a really big difference with the longevity of my makeup when I do go for more of a dewy look. For concealers, the first one I want to talk about, everyone knows about this one, obviously. This is the Maybelline Age Rewind Concealer. And I tried this forever ago, like years and years ago, and to be quite honest with you guys, I didn't like it when I first tried it. I feel like it didn't really do anything, and at the time I wanted full coverage. My preferences for makeup has completely changed. The way that I apply my makeup has completely changed since my teenage years, and this is so good. I completely get it now. I love how thin this is, but I like how much coverage it gives you. I would say that this is a light medium to medium coverage concealer, and you can build it up on itself without it getting too greasy or like slipping and sliding all over the skin. I don't know who likes this applicator, but I do like the fact that it winds the product up and you can get every little bit of it. I just wish that there was a different applicator here, but I do really enjoy this because it looks so skin-like. I have multiple shades that I kind of mix and match together, or I'll just wear one or the other depending on where my complexion is at that moment. The About Face concealers, this one definitely has more of a medium coverage to me. I wouldn't say it's full coverage, but you can get closer to that if you layer it, and it is possible to layer these. I really enjoy the fact that these are slightly more creamy, but it's very easy to blend out. That doe foot is kind of like this flat paddle doe foot that's really nice to apply, either if you put it on the back of your hand, on a palette, or straight to your face. I appreciate the finish of this one. I do feel like it's more of a skin-like finish with slight hydration, but not enough to where it's difficult to powder it down. It will crease just a little bit if you get it too close into like your under eye fine lines, but that's really easy to just kind of swipe away as you're doing your makeup before you set it down. But I do think that this gives you such a perfected face of makeup. And I also appreciate the shade range. I think that they really play around with the undertones, and they also have some olive overtones that you can choose from as well. And then my third concealer I actually don't have. I had decluttered this because mine had gone bad, but the L'Oreal Infallible Concealer, this one is definitely a high coverage concealer. This is definitely going to be more on the matte side, and whenever I use this one, I do go in with a very small amount, and I like to let it build in layers. Like I'll let it dry down after I blend it, and then I'll go in with more if I feel it's necessary. And although this is matte, it's not flat. It doesn't dry, it doesn't cake on the skin. It really just looks like you have a really good face of makeup. And it is gonna look like you're wearing makeup, so there's no denying that one, but it looks very flawless when you wear it. Moving on now to foundations, and the first one is going to be the About Face foundation. This one is essentially the foundation version of the concealer. This is definitely a foundation that feels very thin, slightly serum-y, but it does dry down and it gives you medium to medium full coverage. I definitely feel like I can get closer to the full coverage with this one, but it still feels like it moves with the skin. And again, I do really appreciate the shade range that they have. I love the undertones. They have olive shades as well. And the doe foot applicator on this is kind of funny. It just looks like a jumbo concealer, and you can go in and just put this all over your face. Definitely not the most hygienic, or you can also put this on the back of your hand, and I actually feel like that's a pretty good way to go as well. Next, a foundation that I have a full review video on, the Maybelline Matte Lumi foundation. Obviously the name is very confusing here, matte and Lumi. It doesn't really make sense, but I think that it kind of lies in the fact that it dries down matte, but it still leaves your skin looking like skin somehow. I feel like it's more of a satin matte finish, which is really nice, and whenever I do a full face of makeup with this, my skin looks very soft focus, it looks very airbrush, and I think that this works very similarly to a lot of high-end foundations that I really like. It goes on very thinly, you can build the coverage, let it dry down between layers as well. Every single time I look at it and I'm like, wow, this looks amazing. In my experience, I actually feel like it does help with the longevity. I do think that matte finish does allow this foundation to last a bit longer on my skin throughout the day. And lastly is the Revolution Skin Silk Luminous Serum Foundation. Now the one that I have is a bit too warm for my skin tone currently, but this is a really good match for me in the summertime. This is surprisingly very, very good. This is definitely going to be a very true matte finish. It almost looks like, I don't know, kind of soft focused again, a little bit velvety on the skin, if that makes any sense. I think that this has some pretty high coverage. Again, I would categorize this being medium high to even high coverage, and then with this layered with concealer and stuff, it really does perform extremely well, and it lasts very long on this skin as well. I will say, while I love the way that this looks on the skin, if I wear it for too many days, like if I wear it for 3 to 5 days straight, it will break me out a little bit. And I know that not everyone is acne prone, which is why I still feel like this is one of the best foundations that I've tried. But if I wear it 1 or 2 days and then, you know, try something else, which is usually what does happen, I don't have any issues. But I did want to point that out for you guys. I do have 2 skin tints. The first one I don't have in my possession because I used it completely up, and I do plan on repurchasing it once I go through more of my products. But the L'Oreal skin tint, that was probably my first introduction to an actual like skin tint serum type of product, and I love it. If you like a more hydrated base and you like something that just works like almost skincare, but you still get that even coverage that you want from a foundation or a skin tint, L'Oreal is going to be a really good option for you. This one just feels so thin and like serum-y, a true skincare like skin tint. It's not irritating to the skin. I'm not crazy about the dropper on it. It's not my favorite. When I used this up completely, I had moved it into a cushion compact that I bought on Yes Style, and I loved using it that way. And then my second skin tint is gonna be the Maybelline skin tint. This is a Super Stay one with vitamin C. This one is going to be slightly more matte than the L'Oreal one, but I wouldn't categorize it as being matte. I think that this one is a pretty true natural skin finish, and it's what I have on today. I really enjoy it for an all over coverage. It does give me medium coverage. You can't necessarily build this one too much, but what I have found is that I could put a layer of this on my skin, let it dry, and then just put like pinpoint areas if I want extra coverage, and it'll give me a little bit more. And the reason why I usually do pinpoint coverage is this can get very dewy very quickly. But these days I've been loving using this when I'm underpainting, so I'll use a bronzer, a contour, color corrector and stuff, and then I'll go in with this, just a really light amount of this on top, and your skin just looks perfect. Let's move on now to some loose powders. I want to talk about the L'Oreal Infallible Blurfection powder. This one truly was a standout product for me when I first used it. So I do think that there's a pretty big difference with different loose powders. Some of them are super finely milled, like this one, that I feel like are better for dusting and like just lightly powdering onto the skin. And then there are other loose powders that I feel like are better for baking, because with these more finely milled products, I feel like they're a little bit too fine that you end up using too much, and then somehow it makes it look like you have less coverage, or at least for me, I feel like it sort of enhances my hyperpigmentation and like my freckling that I cover with my foundation and my concealer. So this one is phenomenal if you are someone that just likes to do light dustings of powder on the skin. It really does completely blur the pores. This is something that I like to reach for to layer with other powders, and it's also one of the powders that I like to reach for if I'm doing a really light face of makeup and I want something to just kind of eliminate the extra oils that may start off on the skin, and I don't really mind having more of a dewy complexion throughout the day. However, I do feel like this keeps my oils at bay. It does a really good job with keeping the oils away if I do brush this all over the skin. And then the next one is actually even better if you have oily skin, but it is definitely more intense. So this is the Innisfree No Sebum Mineral Powder. This is a Japanese beauty brand, and this is an extremely thin powder. Like this one just feels like almost nothing between your fingers, and this is definitely going to be a dusting powder. Again, it does have this little puff that comes with it, and it's really nice if you need to just like blot throughout the day. If you have oils that come throughout the day, this is something that I like to use as the day progresses. As you can see, a little demo here for you guys. It smooths the skin. It's an oil blotting powder, and it is completely transparent. It doesn't leave any sort of gray cast on the skin. It just creates this veil, and it's very nice. This is a very specific use here, and I think that it is such a wonderful product if you can get your hands on it. And then my last loose powder is the About Face loose powder, and this one definitely very bulky, not my favorite packaging, but the actual product is really nice. It took me a little while to kind of warm up to this and understand it, because I was trying to use this as a baking powder. This really shines as a dusting powder. I feel like it gives me just enough coverage and just enough mattifying to where I can go on top of it with my finishing powder, which typically I will do anyways. Now moving on to finishing powders. You guys are going to laugh at how this looks, but I'll explain it. So this is my NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop powder, and I do have it in this separate container right here because when I ordered this on Ulta, it came completely smashed, which, by the way, Ulta's shipping is just sometimes horrendous when it comes to powders because half the time my stuff comes broken. I went ahead and I pressed this back in, and I've talked a lot about how I have such a hard time repressing powders, but I recently purchased the Fixie makeup fixer thing. It's kind of this contraption where you can grind your powders and then you can repress them, and they have a specific spray that works so much better than just regular rubbing alcohol, and oh my goodness, so good. I only have the round version, but I did order the square version. Anyways, all that to say, this is my powder. I know it's very, very old in terms of like the life cycle of new beauty products at the drugstore, but I love this. It's so buttery smooth on the skin. It feels like silk on the skin, and it's such a nice finishing powder because it truly does blur the skin without giving too much of its own coverage. Because with finishing powders, I like a more sheer coverage, and what I wanted to do is just fix the texture of my skin. And then my second finishing powder isn't necessarily a finishing powder. It's the L'Oreal Infallible Powder Foundation, and I completely had used this up a while ago, so this is another one that I don't currently have. It definitely has more coverage since it is supposed to be a powder foundation. However, I don't think it's too much if you use more of a fluffy brush like this one, this BK103. If you do a light swirl and then do a really thin amount of dusting, it looks really perfected, and it does give a good amount of mattifying on the skin. And unlike some powder foundations where it can look really obvious on the skin and cakey, this one does not for me. So it's a very good one if you're looking for slightly more coverage than other finishing powders, but you still want something that's going to smooth out the look of your skin. My blush picks are going to be creams and liquids, and the first one is the Maybelline Cloudtopia. If you guys have not heard of this, this is very similar to the Fouet pudding pot in terms of the way that the texture is. And although they are similar to the Fouet blurring pudding pots, these are slightly more hydrated in finish, but it's still overall more of a matte finish look. I really enjoy these because they pack so much punch when it comes to pigmentation. I like to go in with my brush and then tap it out either on a palette or the back of my hand or a paper towel, because that way I can distribute it more evenly onto my brush. And it works flawlessly on the cheeks, and these also work so lovely on the lips. They look like a more diffused lip look, but because they have slight hydration to them, they are very comfortable. And then next we have the L'Oreal Lumi Blush. So these are going to be slightly thicker of a liquid texture. I wouldn't say it's necessarily moussey, but it definitely has some body to it, and you're able to apply this onto the cheeks and blend it out very, very easily. It's not going to be one that dries down too quickly, but it also doesn't stay super wet for too long. I feel like it's kind of a Goldilocks product in that sense. I feel like these really melt into the skin and they really give you that flush from within look. They do have shimmery versions as well as ones that don't have shimmer, and I prefer the non-shimmery versions. And then my third pick is going to be these Versed sticks. These are the shade Swipe blush sticks. I think that they're done so well. They're very similar to the Merit Flush Cheeks because it is the same brand, so think of it that way. But I do feel like these shades are a little bit more on the earthy tone side of things. They're a little bit more muted. I would say they're more high in pigmentation than the Merit ones and slightly less hydrating or less dewy than those, so you can really see the pigmentation shine through. These are very nice on top of your like wet products, your creams, your liquids, but it also does really well on top of my powders. So sometimes when it comes to more cream or stick blushes, to be able to get more wear out of them, I will put them on top of my powders, because then it kind of like stays on top of the powder and it doesn't like melt off with my oils. And these go on top of the powders flawlessly. You don't see any separation or like movement underneath. For my powder bronzer picks, the first one is going to be a newer one, or they had reformulated it rather. This is the Milani Baked Bronzer, and this is really nice because it gives a lot of warmth to the skin while still looking like it works with my complexion. The one that I have is in the shade number 2 Tuscan Tan, and I feel like it's slightly warm for my skin, but it doesn't go too red or too orange. This is something that I will go for if I'm feeling like I want my look to be super bronzy in that sense. There is a lot of kick up on this, so you do have to go in very carefully and just make sure that you tap off the excess, because you really don't need a lot of this. It gives you a lot of dimension because it does have a little bit of like shine in it, almost like this pearlescent finish to it, but on the skin it looks very healthy. But before the baked baked blushes, I was using this Milani bronzer all the time, which is going to be our second pick. And this one is the Sun Bronzer. I have this in the shade number 3 Suntan. And this is going to be a true neutral toned bronzer on me. It does look quite light here, but it's one of those where you put it onto the skin and it really warms up on the skin. This feels buttery and soft. It does have talc in it, but it smooths onto the skin like no other. It gives you that diffused soft look, and it's really hard to go overboard with this one on my complexion because of the shade and because it's not too soft, so you're not getting too much product at one time. In my eyes, the way that this works on me, this is the drugstore equivalent to the LYS matte bronzer that I love so much. And then we have the L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear Bronzer. As you guys can tell, I really like the L'Oreal Infallible line. I think that it works so well for me. A little bit is going to go a very long way, but it does have an extremely smooth, buttery texture as well. And I do feel like this one is slightly more neutral than that Milani baked bronzer as well. I do have 2 contour products. One is a powder, one is a cream, and the first one is going to be the NYX Butter Bronzer. This is in the shade number 3, Deserve Butter. Deserve Butter. And although this does say it's a bronzer, I do find that this shade works the best on me as a contour. I know that's not the case for all skin tones, but for me it really shines through as a contour. I love that it's not too grayish on my skin tone. It does have a little bit more of a neutral tone to it, so it works really nicely in the hollows of my cheeks. I think the name really suits it because this truly does feel like butter on the skin. The way that this blends in, the way that you can swipe this on. I like to kind of dab, like tap my bronzers on, but this one I can slightly like swipe onto the skin if I really want to get a lot of coverage at one time. It does have a slight scent to it, but you don't really notice it too much after you apply it to the skin, at least I don't. And it feels like this always adds the right amount of contour, and again, it just doesn't look too obviously contoured on the skin. My second contour product is going to be the Morphe Contour Stick. This one I had talked about when it first came out. I did my first impressions and I was not too impressed with it, but since then I've just been reaching for it because I'm like, oh, I have it. And I've realized that I seem to reach for this quite often now. This is the perfect shade for a nose contour for me, because it is again going to be more on the neutral side of things, and I love a contour that's not just gray on my skin, and this one really delivers. It does have more of a sheer pigmentation, but you can build this up on top of itself, but this is going to be more of a natural type of contour, so it's very hard to go overboard, and I'm sure that the shade that I chose really plays a role in that. I love this especially again as my nose contour and to kind of sculpt my cheeks out. This is slightly more hydrating for a contour stick, so it's going to blend a lot easier than other more dry contour sticks do. Moving on to brow products. So the first one is going to be this ColourPop Brow Boss. Now they do have a different brow gel that they've had for a long time, and that one I'm not really a fan of. I feel like it doesn't really hold my brows the way that this one does. It is going to be that liquid wax texture that I typically like from my brow gels, like the Rare Beauty one, but this does feel a little bit more soft and like smooth in the brows. My brows don't ever get crunchy when I use this, but it does keep those brow hairs up, which is very important for me. I wouldn't say that it's strong enough to laminate my brows, but I do really just go for a feathery, bushy brow, and it is perfect for that. And then a brow pencil, the Morphe Nano Brow. This one I've gone back and forth on because I really, really love how small the tip of this eyebrow pencil is, but it does go quick. My favorite way to use this is just to shape the bottom of my brows, and sometimes I'll go in, fill the rest of my brows with it, and other times I'll go in with a different one just so I don't use this too much. But this is going to be probably the thinnest pinpoint finish of a brow pen that I've tried thus far. It's the perfect amount of creaminess. It's not too waxy, it's not too creamy. I like a brow pen that's slightly drier so it doesn't deposit too much product, and this does it perfect. I completely finished this one up, but the L'Oreal Infallible Brow Gel, this one I would say is the closest drugstore alternative to the Rare Beauty Brow Gel, which is one of my holy grails as well. I love how thin and skinny the spoolie on than this one is, and the strength of that gel is just phenomenal. It really holds the brows in place. It does feel slightly more significant in terms of the hold than something like the ColourPop Brow Boss. It doesn't feel crunchy, which is important, and it's just super reliable for me. And this is actually one that I can use as more of a feathery brow look, or I can use it to laminate the brows. For my eyeshadow picks, I actually really love these single shadows that I'm going to talk about. And the first one, oldie but goodie, the ColourPop Super Shock Shadows, specifically this shade in Rooftop Cocktails. You guys, this duochrome has been taking over my life. I love this kind of rusty terracotta base, and then it has this blue-green shift to it. And while it does look like it would be a little bit intimidating in the pan here, once you get it on the eyes, it does not look jarring. I think the rusty terracotta really lends to it being slightly more neutral when it comes to a duochrome, but then that shift is really fun. I love to put this on the inner corner and kind of like work it past the center of my eye. It just gives me such an easy, no fuss, really fun, colorful look to the eyes. And then I have the About Face Fluid Matte Paints. I have a ton of these, and I really enjoy Capulets for a one and done matte shadow, and then the shade Fracture. They have very high color payoff. They do tend to dry down quite quickly, but you're able to blend this out very fast and diffuse it before it dries down. And once these dry down, you get a lot of wear time out of them. They're not completely crease proof, but I will get, I would say, at least 8 to 10 hours of wear before I see any sort of creasing going on the eyes. I have completely used up 2 of these, and this is my 3rd one, and this one is starting to dry out a little bit. I did use some Duraline in there to kind of wake it back up, and it seems to have worked, but I'm definitely at the end of my bottle here. I really feel like there's nothing like this at the drugstore in terms of the color variety that they have and the textures and the wear time. And then we have this. This is the Matte Solo Artist Priming Cream Eyeshadow from Morphe. These are really interesting because I think that they were more so marketed as being priming base eyeshadow products, sort of like the MAC paint pots, but this I actually find is such a good one and done eyeshadow color. It's so soft on my complexion that it almost looks like a very natural shadow on the eyes, but then I can also use it as a base for powder eyeshadows. So I love the multi-purpose on this. Now let's move on to some mascaras. The first one obviously has to be the Hair and Make Advanced Film Long and Curl Mascara. This is a Japanese beauty brand, and this is my ride or die holy grail mascara, you guys. I love it by itself. I especially love it to prime my lashes for other mascaras. It really holds the curl of my lashes. It has fibers, so it helps with a little bit of thickness as well, and it's gonna last all day. It's great as a primer because no matter what you put on top of it, it seems to work really wonderfully to keep that curl in place. But sometimes if I just feel like layering this on top, I can do that without my lashes getting spidery or like being too much, and it doesn't flake or anything on the lashes. And before I was using that, I was using this. This is the Maybelline Full and Soft Waterproof Mascara. If you'd rather get something that's a little bit more accessible to us here in the US, this one is definitely going to be the one that I recommend. This is going to be the waterproof, and that's the one that I would always use. This is going to be one of the softest feeling mascaras on the lashes. It truly, once you brush it onto the lashes and you touch your lashes, it feels like nothing. It just feels like really soft lashes, but somehow it holds my curl in place. It gives you a lot of definition. It's going to be more of a natural looking lash, but again, I liked using this kind of as my base mascara, as my priming mascara, but even by itself on really casual makeup days, I think that this looks really nice and very clean and defined. And then what I'll use sometimes on top of those, or even by itself, the L'Oreal Telescopic Lift waterproof version as well. This one is one of the very rare drugstore mascaras that are still waterproof and still hold my curl. There are definitely waterproof versions of mascaras at the drugstore that people swear by that my lashes will still droop with somehow, but this one actually holds my curl. This is definitely something that I feel like really shines in terms of length and definition. But if I want it to look like I have a lot of long lashes, then I'll pair it with those other two mascaras. The brush is a little bit hard to work with when you first start using it, but once you get the hang of it, it's really nice because it separates those lashes and it allows you to get in there and really coat the lashes to get them to look long. For eyeliners, my Can Make Creamy Touch liner, I have this in the shade number 3 brown. This is such a great liner because it has a 1.5 millimeter tip, so extremely tiny. So it is perfect if you like doing more of a micro wing liner like I do, or if you want to just get into the tight line and really tight line your lashes or your eyes. It's wonderful for that, and it really lasts in the tight line. I get very minimal separation or transfer with this one, and it's in my tight line at the end of the day when I'm gonna wash my makeup off. This is super long wearing, and I feel like it's super creamy like the name suggests. This never skips. I've gone through a couple and they don't dry out before I get to the end of it. Once this sets, it's not going anywhere. And then the Maybelline 2-in-1 sculpting stick. This one has one of those diagonal applicators. Again, it does have a lot of pigmentation to it, and I love the brush on the other side. You guys know that I love a usable brush when it comes to eyeliner pencils, and this one is just such an incredible one. It really allows you to wing out that eyeliner with no fuss, and this one is another one that's going to dry down when you apply it to the eyes. If you like doing more of a pinpoint eyeliner, I think that this one is such a good option for you. So I want to talk about some Freckle Pens. I didn't know necessarily where to put these within the top 3 category videos, but I thought I would talk about them here because I do have some definite favorites when it comes to Freckle Pens. My most favorite one is actually from ColourPop. This is the Freckle Pen in the shade Soft Brown, and the reason I love this so much is because it is the exact, and I'm saying exact, same color as my actual freckles, and it is going to be a felt tip, but so far I have found that this felt tip has stayed really nice and saturated, so it hasn't dried out on me, and it also doesn't just deposit a blob of ink on the skin, and it's very easy to work with because the amount of ink that it puts on the skin is very minimal, and it'll like dry down very naturally, and there's not enough time for this to actually bleed on the skin. If I want to just accentuate my natural freckles, I will just add a couple of these, and I'm just amazed at the fact that this literally looks exactly like my natural freckling. And then if I want something that's very dramatic in terms of freckles, I'll use this one. This is the Marilia Scott water resistant faux freckle in the shade Light Dark. I don't think that this is waterproof, or at least, okay, maybe it's waterproof, but I don't think that it's oil proof, because at the end of the day, if I'm very oily, I can just kind of like swipe them away. So the applicator on this is very stiff. It's kind of just this stiff plastic, and it works wonderfully because it gives you a lot of control. You can just dot this on, and the tip on this is very small, so it allows you to just put a very small dot, and then I like to go in and just tap it in with my fingers, and that allows me to create the look of even more freckles. Since it is a darker product, it is a little bit more intense on me, but somehow it still looks like real freckles. And then the last Freckle Pen is the Buble and Rudy Freckle Pen. This is the old packaging. I believe it comes in a red packaging now, and this is officially permanent within the Buble line, by the way. It does have that kind of circular ball tip on the end, so it allows you to get more of a freckle shape versus going in with like a skinny felt tip, you know? And the color of this one is definitely slightly more warm, but somehow it makes it look really nice and natural when I'm going for more of a warm tone look that's a bit more bronzy. This one, in my opinion, has the best staying power out of all 3 of the freckle products that I'm talking about. It's definitely something that I like to reach for when I'm doing more of a bronzy, more natural, more like fresh-faced freckle look. So for setting sprays, I do only have one here because I am like ride or die for my other setting sprays that I talked about in the high-end version, but the Morphe Life Proof Continuous Setting Mist. So this is my first can of the Life Proof version, which is essentially a stronger version of the OG Micro Continuous Setting Mist that they have in the black can. I do find that it actually helps with the longevity of my makeup. It doesn't prevent my oils from coming through, but it does allow my makeup to stay stay in place underneath my oils, which I think is really nice. And of course, this is like one of the best misters out there. It really is so fine, and it feels like it would just drench the skin, but because it comes out super, super fine, it allows me to just spray it all over without feeling the need to repowder my entire face. Now we're moving into lip categories. The Maybelline Lifter Liners are incredible lip liners. They are so easy. There's no skipping. You get very even, very high pigmentation. And right after that, if you blend it out, you're able to blend everything so it looks more diffused, but you don't lose any of that pigmentation. And then once you blend everything in, let it set down, it is there for the entire day. This is one of those lip liners that kind of feels like it has one of those like film formers where it allows the product to completely dry down, and it has that long wear feeling to it. If you guys have ever experienced that with lip products, this definitely has that. The newer Milani plumping, what is this? Keep It Full plumping lip liners. I feel like these are not spoken about enough. These are so nice when it comes to creamy lip liners from the drugstore. And an added bonus is it does actually feel like it's one of those plumping products. And the reason why I feel like that's so interesting and impressive is because when it comes to plumping products, what you're essentially trying to do is make your lips look bigger. So it makes sense to actually put this on the outer perimeter of your lips to kind of, for lack of a better term, like swell up the edges of your lips. So in turn, it makes your entire lip look bigger. And this is what that's doing. It's allowing you to get pinpoint coverage when it comes to a lip liner, but also pinpoint plumping. I'm not a big fan of very intense lip plumpers, and I love the idea of being able to just make sure that this is just in the areas where I want it to be. I love using these to slightly overline my lips, but also to fill in my lips. I think that they have so many incredible shades. And again, it's gonna be one of those lip liners that are very, very creamy, really easy to diffuse out. These are not going to be as pigmented as the Maybelline ones. When you swipe it on, they're very similar in terms of pigmentation, but when you're diffusing this on your lips, like you're blending it on your lips, you can sheer it out just a little bit, but you can also build on top of it. These are kind of hybrids. So the NYX Lip Lingerie Lip Pen stains, these are going to be a stain, but also a lip liner at the same time. I've talked about these very often. These are by far my favorite lip pen stains at the drugstore. I love the variety of shades that they came out with. They do tend to lean slightly more reddish pink on me once they dry down, but I do think that they have some really nice colors that still act as really beautiful contours on me. I find that I get like 12 plus hours of wear out of these. I could do without the ball tip, honestly, but the more I use it, the easier it gets. So I don't necessarily think I like the ball tip. I'm just indifferent to it at this point, but I do think in general, the product flows through this very nicely, so I have no issue with it. And lastly, the Hard Candy lip liner. This is the Instapout lip liner in the shade Boyfriend. This again has a lip brush on the other side. It's definitely more of a dense lip brush, but I really think that it diffuses the lip liner incredibly well. Again, it's going to be more of your creamy lip liner. I would say that this is a sheer to medium coverage when it comes to pigmentation, but the reason I think that this is so nice is the color of it. It is the perfect contour shade. It is going to be slightly cooler, but not to where I can't use it with my usual like lip products. It does have some good lasting power, but I do find that I can reapply this throughout the day, which I don't think is an issue because it is so creamy. It doesn't skip, it doesn't drag. It's at a great price point. So this one is definitely such a good formulation at the drugstore. Let's talk about a couple of lip stains. I'm not going to go on and on about this one because I talk about it every time that I get an opportunity. The Ulta Beauty Weightless Water Lip Stain in Plum Paradise. This one is such a natural looking lip stain on my lips. I think these water stains, being as sheer as they are, they just make it look like your natural lips because it doesn't add an artificial finish of the lips. You know what I'm saying? It's just a flush and it feels like nothing on the lips, but it just adds a little extra something to my otherwise very desaturated looking lips. The NYX Lip IVs, these are amazing lip stains if you can find a shade that you really enjoy. I love the glossy lip stain aspect to this. I think it's very high pigmentation, so it's fun because it combines that lip color and that glossy lip look, and then as the day progresses it fades into more of a stain look. I know other people like to prep the lip with this, so they'll kind of put this on like a lip mask, let it dry for a couple minutes, and then wipe it away. I think that's fine, but personally I really like to just wear this as intended, so I'll just put a little bit on, dab it all over the lips, and then I'll let it fade naturally into a stain. And then my favorite Asian beauty lip stain, the Peri Para Ink Mood Glowy Tints. I have a ton of these. These are just a couple of the ones that I really love, but these are incredible because they truly stain the lips for the entire day. I really do feel like these last on the lips. You can see it has some pretty high pigmentation. It's not going to be the shiniest shade, but I do think that the way that this wears on the lips pairs so perfectly with lip liners, or it just fades so beautifully on the lips. It feels slightly hydrating as well, so I don't feel like at the end of the day when this fades completely, my lips feel dry or like cracked or anything. These do slightly oxidize though, so if you can find like some swatch videos of more of an example versus like the marketing photos. But it just looks so juicy and really hydrated on the lips, and truly it is one of the prettiest stains that I think that I've ever found. A couple of lip balms. I will admit Vaseline is not the first thing that I think about when it comes to hydrating my lips, but I recently, like a couple months ago, bought like the little jar of Vaseline lips, and it's pretty much just regular petroleum jelly. It's so good. I feel silly saying it, but truly it is one of the top lip balms. But it just acts like a barrier and it holds all of that hydration into the lips, which is so nice and truly has been something that I have very much relied on at night. The Phytosurgence lip balm, they are an indie brand, but the price point does fall into more drugstore category. They're going to be more of that drier formula of lip balms, drier in the sense that it doesn't feel very slick and greasy on the lips, and it's actually a substantial balm. Like, it actually hydrates the lips throughout the day, and they did definitely prioritize the way that this hydrates and feels on the lips with slight sheer pigmentation. The amount of pigmentation, the amount of hydration this adds to the lips, it's so addictive. It feels so nice, but it still gives you a really nice sophisticated color. All of the shades that they have are so nuanced, and I feel like they work with so many skin tones. Now for my favorite lipsticks. So these are going to be more in the category of like lipstick lip serums. We're starting off with the Milani Keep It Full Glossy Balms. I think that's what they're called. Glossy Plumping Balms. Now these do have a little bit of mintiness to them, but they're not like first and foremost going to be lip plumpers. These are going to have more of a sheer pigmentation to them, but I like it because I feel like it sort of enhances the lips. They give you a really nice, beautiful, almost natural lip look, even though you can get some pretty good color payoff off of these. I think they're super comfortable. They definitely have more of that glossy lipstick lip balm type of texture where it feels almost like it could be slightly thicker, almost pudding-like, but it's nowhere near that much because you really don't need a lot. But because it does have slightly thicker of a texture, these I think last very long on the lips when it comes to more glossy balm type of products. And then very similarly to those, the Versed lip serums. These are slightly more thin in texture, but they have slightly more pigmentation than the Milani ones. This feels like it actually is nourishing the lips for me, and I can go through the entire day and just reapply this as I go, and I won't feel the need to reach for a separate lip balm. I do feel like these feel slightly more hydrating on the lips than other like glossy balms can. Even the Bright Pops of Pink look so beautiful on the lips. I think it's because it is going to be more sheer in nature. And then another one, the Versed Lip Tints. What are these called? Smoothing Lip Blushes. This one in the shade Lounge is one that I'm wearing in my lip combo today. If you are familiar with the Violette Bisou Balms, the Refi Blurring Lip Blushes, very similar to those. It has that velvety finish texture. It's almost powdery in a sense when you apply it on the lips, but this one does have slightly more hydration than those, so it feels a little bit more lip balmy. Not as much of a lip balm as the Phytosurgence one. I do think that one itself is more hydrating in nature, and this one is definitely going to be more of a lipstick lip color for me. And then lastly, some lip glosses. So obviously the Maybelline Lifter glosses, it's talked about so much, but for good reason. These are some of the best lip glosses at the drugstore. They're substantial lip glosses glosses. They are a true actual lip gloss in my opinion. I love the color variety that they have. It's such a huge line. You're bound to find a color that you like. And it's a thicker gloss, so it lasts on the lips for quite a long time when it comes to a lip gloss. It's not going to be hydrating on its own. I do find that it's just that. It's just going to be a lip gloss. And they're just so easy to reach for. An Asian Beauty lip gloss that I love, the Peri Para Ink Glossing Lip Gloss. These are going to be a thicker, super shiny, super wet looking gloss. I would say that this has medium pigmentation, so they are going to be stronger in pigmentation, but the formulation of this works so well. It lasts a really long time because again, it's going to be slightly thicker of a texture, but it's not uncomfortable, and I can usually wear these by themselves and be really happy with them. And then lastly, of course, the Fui 3D volumizing glosses. So the 30% and 70% refers to the pigmentation that these have, and every shade has a 30 and a 70 version. I love the 30% for like pretty much every day, and in my book these are the perfect gloss. They're shiny, they're wet, they're comfortable, they're slightly thick without looking thick on the lips. They feel like they're actually hydrating, and the colors, they have so many different colors, so many different options out there, and they stay on the lips for an incredibly long time. There's something about this that just feels like such a sophisticated type of gloss. It really does feel nice to apply onto the lips. I definitely recommend it if you are a gloss type of person. Okay, you guys, and that concludes our top 3 drugstore products for every category. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please let me know in the comments if we have any similar favorites as well, because I love hearing y'all's experiences with all of these products, as well as some of your favorites. And also, if you have some top recommendations, leave those in the comments for everyone, because I love seeing what everyone is liking and why they like them. If you guys missed the high-end luxury version of this video, I'm gonna link it right here for you in case you are curious. But until next time, you guys, I hope that you take care of yourselves, and I will see you very soon. Bye.